My name is Karen Morris. I'm the training officer for Beaufort County EMS, and I would like to tell you a little bit about some kits that you're going to be finding in county buildings. We're very fortunate to have the Stop the Bleed kits. I'm going to give you a little bit of background information on them so you realize how it might be helpful to you and how it could affect you. These Stop the Bleed kits were a government initiative that began after the Sandy Hook shooting. You may remember there were 26 fatalities, and 20 of those were children between the ages of 6 and 7 years old. We've also had our own incident here in Townville, South Carolina, where we had a young child named Jacob who was 6 years old who died after being shot on the playground. That's why you may see these kits called Jacob kits here in South Carolina. Regardless of whether they're called Jacob's kits, Stop the Bleed, or bleeding control, they contain some very important material and equipment that will help you if you find yourself in a situation where someone has been wounded, whether it's from an active shooter event or some other type of traumatic situation. These kits are going to be located near your AED, fire extinguishers, or front entrances of county buildings. They are not locked. All you have to do is simply turn and open. Once you open the kit and take it out, very simple to open it, they just zip. Just unzip it, and when you unzip it, this is the contents that you're going to find. Now, each of these serve a particular purpose, and we're going to go through that and show you how you use them. First, there are gloves. Now, these can come in different colors. The ones I've seen in this particular kit all seem to be blue. So they have gloves, so you can put those on to protect your hands. They will also have a tourniquet. Tourniquets also come in different colors. The ones I've seen in these kits have been orange. You're going to find some bandaging material like this. Now, when you first see this, it's in a little kit. It's sealed up. Anything that's sealed up has a nice red marking on it, so you know right where to tear it from. Another piece of equipment that's in it is going to be a compression bandage, and when you take it out, you'll notice it's a nice big bandage. It actually has some instructions to tell you which side goes on the wound, and when you look, it's got a nice absorbent padding to it that you would put over a wound that pressure would control the bleeding. And if you look too, it's also got some stretch to it, and that's what helps you get that pressure over that wound. The other thing that you're going to find in it are shears, and this is important. If you can cut the clothing, you don't want to have any wounds that you can't see. So wherever you think there may be a wound at, go ahead. Whether it's the pant leg, whether it may be the shirt sleeve, just go ahead and cut it off the victim. Also included are these chest seals, and we'll go over each of these in more detail in just a minute, but these chest seals are for particular type wounds, and just like the name implies, it would be a chest wound, and we'll demonstrate those for you in just a few minutes. Now I'd like to move over and demonstrate what we would use these materials for. I'd like to introduce Shana Orson. She is a paramedic with Beaufort County EMS. She has a strong background in tactical medicine, and Shana is going to demonstrate the equipment, the materials that come inside of these Jacob or Stop the Bleed kits. First, she's going to demonstrate how to put on the gloves that come in the kit, and these gloves will help protect your hands while you're applying pressure, placing a tourniquet, whatever you're doing to help the victim at that time. They're very easy. They fit multiple size hands. Just slip them on over your hand. The first thing she's going to demonstrate is what controls most bleeding is just applying pressure. And when she does that, she's going to start by putting the heel of one hand firmly, and then her other hand goes on top, lock those elbows, and put strong pressure and hold it there. It takes a while to stop bleeding. Once you apply that pressure, don't stop. Keep it there until EMS arrives. She is also going to demonstrate how to use the bandaging that comes inside the Jacob's kit. So when you open the kit, it comes out in a little block. When you pull it, it'll become loose where you can kind of mash it together. Here she's got one that's already been unraveled. And just take it, put it right directly over the wound and press hard. Don't worry about applying too much pressure. You need to really apply significant pressure to stop the bleeding. Don't check it, don't move your hands, keep it right there, keep applying pressure. If it happens to bleed through the dressing that you've applied, put another one right over the top of it. You could also use something such as a towel if you have one available, a shirt, whatever you have that helps you make a bandage that you can apply pressure over. For bleeding that can be controlled with pressure, there is also a dressing included inside the Stop the Bleed or Jacob's kit. It's considered a trauma dressing. It has the ability to apply pressure when you put it on. Shayna's going to demonstrate how you would apply this, and it's got a little label that tells you which side goes to the patient. You just put it directly over the wound. It has an absorbent pad on the side that goes towards the patient, and you just wrap it and wrap it tight. There again, you want that pressure because pressure is what is going to control bleeding. And this is so important because with significant severe hemorrhaging, you can lose enough blood in just 5 minutes that it can lead to death. So getting this pressure on these wounds, getting this bleeding stopped is extremely important. Very simple to do, as you see Shayna applying that. And it has a little piece of Velcro on it that will keep it in place and keep that pressure on that wound. Although most wounds, especially those that can be described as bleeding that is oozing or seeping, can be controlled with pressure, there are those wounds and injuries that cannot. Particularly for these extremity wounds, wounds that are on the arms and legs, wounds that you would describe as gushing, flowing, or spurting blood, they will need a tourniquet. And it's important that you get that tourniquet on there quickly. So Shayna is going to demonstrate how to apply the tourniquet. It's very simple. First, she's going to remove the clothing. Remember, that's important. We want to make sure there's no other wounds that we're missing. And then she will take her tourniquet. She's going to put it on the leg approximately 2 to 3 inches above the wound. Essentially, what you want to remember with a tourniquet is high and tight. And people often ask me, they'll say, well, Karen, how tight? And what I will tell you is tight enough that the bleeding stops. We're not trying to slow the flow of the bleeding, we're stopping the bleeding. So what she did was she applied the tourniquet, Velcroed it in place, and now there's a windlass. And you'll see her begin to twist that, and as she twists that windlass, it's applying the pressure that's going to stop that bleeding. As soon as she sees that the bleeding has stopped, she's going to secure the windlass, put the Velcro back over it, secure it. If you have a pen and you want to write the time that you put that tourniquet in place, you can certainly do that. But there are some very important things to remember about a tourniquet. One, it's going to hurt. Do not remove it. Once that tourniquet is in place and you have that bleeding controlled, do not take the tourniquet off. And as I said, it will hurt. However, that tourniquet is what's going to save that victim's life. Now, there is another thing that you can do with a tourniquet, and that is that you can apply it to your own self. This is something that can be done where you are able to save your own life with this. And Shayna will demonstrate that for us also. You can take it, it can be used on your arm or your leg, and that's important. Please remember, tourniquets are only used on extremities, and that's arms and legs. All of the equipment in these Stop the Bleed Jacob kits can be used on adults or children. You see how easily she applied that to her arm, secured it with one hand, and now she's tightening it down and then hooking it. So whether you're helping another person or yourself, very, very easy. When you're in this type of a situation, the bystander will always be present before your emergency responders. You've got about 5 minutes to save someone's life when they have a significant bleed. So it's very important that if you're there, whether you are the victim or you are a bystander, that you empower yourself to act and do something to stop the bleed. So another method for controlling hemorrhage, particularly when it is in that abdominal region, is called wound packing. And the compressed gauze that's included in this Stop the Bleed, or Jacob's kit as we call it, is perfect for doing wound packing. Shayna is going to demonstrate how you would do this. And there again, you're using pressure as you pack that wound. But this time, instead of holding your hand over it, you are packing that gauze, 2x2s, dressing, whatever you're using there, down into that wound. You've got to get the pressure at the source of the bleed. So that's why you're pressing that gauze in there. Now, some of you may say or be concerned about infection, but remember, this is to save someone's life. And once they arrive at the hospital, infections can be treated. They'll be taking care of that with some prophylactic antibiotics. So, don't be concerned about that. At this point, we're trying to save a life. Once she gets that wound packed as tightly as she can, then she's going to apply pressure, manual pressure, with her hands over the top of that wound. So that's just another method that you have if you find yourself in this situation. To illustrate the importance of removing the clothing when you see blood, we're going to have Shayna go ahead and cut the shirt off of our victim. So she's just using the shears that are included in the Jacob's Stop the Bleed kit, and she's looking for the source of that bleeding. It's very important that we find the source of the bleeding. So as she cuts through that, she locates a wound on the chest. Included in your Stop the Bleed or Jacob's kit is a piece of equipment that's designed especially for chest wounds, and that's called a chest seal. This one is the hyphen vent, and she is going to show how you would place that over a wound on the chest. The reason for doing this is when you have an opening such as a stab wound, gunshot to the chest, you've made an opening for air to be pulled into and go into the chest cavity. And that is going to cause problems. The lungs are not going to be able to expand. The patient is going to begin to have difficulty breathing. As she takes this vent out, you will notice it has a piece of gauze so she can wipe off any blood or debris that may be around the wound. It also has an adhesive side to it, and that's very important because the adhesive side needs to make sure that that goes on the patient's chest. She'll place the chest seal directly over the wound, and if you'll notice, there's like a little vent look to the middle of it there. Try to position that over the middle of the opening if you can. And then this is very important. Make sure you smooth out the edges of the chest seal. You don't want any pockets for air to seep in there. So once you place that, the next thing we want to know, particularly if this was a gunshot or possibly a very long knife, is there an exit wound on the other side? So if your victim is lying on the ground, you're going to have to roll them on the side. If they're sitting in a chair, lean them forward, and this is what Shayna has found on the back side of this patient. And that is still a chest wound that leaves an opening for air to be sucked into the chest cavity, which can produce difficulty breathing and lead to death of the patient. You would put the second chest seal that's included in your Jacob's kit right over that wound, just like you did the first one. Place it over the center of the wound. Make sure you smooth it out. Remember, obviously, the adhesive side goes towards the patient so that it will adhere to the patient's body. Although very tragic circumstances have brought about the need for the Jacobs kit, Stop the Bleed kit, or bleeding control kit as we call it, they have empowered us. They have empowered us to learn how to use them and save someone's life, possibly our own. A few things I'd like to remind you. These kits are not locked. They will be located near the AEDs, fire extinguishers, or front entrances of county buildings. You just open them and take out the kit and use whatever you need from it. Remember that the leading cause of death for those under the age of 40 is trauma, and the leading cause of that is uncontrolled bleeding. You have been given tools that you can use to control bleeding in several different ways. The majority of bleeding can be controlled with pressure. Once you apply pressure, remember, don't stop. Keep that pressure in place. It's very important that you keep yourself safe. If your surroundings are not safe, you have to leave. You also need to make sure that you dial 911 so that help is on the way. For more information, you can check our website